All righty. Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon. That's
I'm
Bryce.
I'm Bryce. Hi. Hello. Welcome to the live stream for August of 2024.
Yeah, we are back again. Yes, here on a Saturday morning, and we're awake. We are definitely awake here. Yes, so we're having our live stream today, and today's discussion points will be what we should do for whiteboard topics. Um, as topics for, well, what we should put on our whiteboard for topics for the show in the future, because we thought it'd be kind of fun just to involve listeners and get some ideas of discussion points you think we should discuss. And so this should be fun. It's always interesting to hear what any of you think. And we do tend to grab ideas from listeners because we have some that just send them to us regularly, and we've used a few of those. And that's been fun. It's been really fun to go in that direction because that we know for sure this is something you want to hear us talk about. So yeah, that's what we're going to be discussing today because, we like to talk.
We do.
We do.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we want to hear what other people want to see on the show. I mean, like we have a whole bunch of topics that we are planning on discussing, and we want to take suggestions from folks, especially our patrons, supporters of the show. We want you to feel like you have a hand in the direction of the show and future topics and everything too. And if there's something that you want to focus Shannon and my mind on a topic, then hey, we're absolutely amenable to those suggestions.
Especially if it's something you want to be rage inducing, like the last one. Oh my God. We got an email saying, I hope Shannon survived that record.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have wonderful beta blockers they have me taking. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah,
Uh,
so that's been, those are fun to do. So yeah, I mean, this next episode's another huge niblet, and that'll be fun, but that'll be next week. So you're getting a lot
yes.
of things all at once
Yeah, I
from
mean,
us.
we gotta once we finish this, we gotta keep putting finish touches on our notes and then get to recording that episode as well. Because if the stars align, I'm gonna be making another road trip out to Utah here next week because the conferences going on, the Utah Fungi Fest in Salt Lake City, and then the John Whitmer Historical Association. So I'm gonna make a trip out to Utah and spend a couple weeks out there, and well. I'm gonna be driving out on the day the episode normally drops, so we gotta crunch ahead of
Gear
time and get it
down.
all done before. But
Yeah.
yeah, so good times, good fun, everything's great.
Yeah.
So if you are a Patreon supporter of the show, patreon.com/glassboxpodcast, you should now have a link that was sent to or that was posted up as an individual post, and I will actually send it as a link to individual patrons as well to join the panel discussion. If you'd like to
Yeah.
be part of this chat, you're welcome to. Or if you don't want to be part of the panel discussion, you can always leave a comment on one of those posts on the Patreon page for your topic suggestions for the future, or whatever, commenting on whatever we're talking about, whatever you want to do. We like to be free, be
Yeah,
as you will, live as you will.
for
Um,
sure.
all right.
Yeah,
So,
we've had one suggestion before from a listener about Jehovah Witnesses and the cross stuff. And so that is
mm,
on our whiteboard as something to discuss. Though, if any of you want to talk a little bit more about why you suggest it, that's great. Hi, Julie. So those kind of
hey,
things.
Julie.
But which would be fun to do. And another one that has been thrown out for us is talking about the ensign, or the church magazines as they can now call them, but how different the ensign is now versus the 80s, the 1980s, which that's when I actually was kind of paying attention to church magazines. And the articles were different in those than they are now, and it would be interesting to compare and contrast and see what kind of a different direction the church is taking.
What do
You
you
know, for
mean they're different? Like how?
there's one of them, like there's one I remember very clearly. It was from 1988 or 87, something like that. And this was an article having to do with caffeine and how the word of wisdom is not saying you can't drink caffeine.
Oh, interesting.
It was really clear about that. Yeah, and it was very direct. And so it's something I wonder about, like who's in charge then versus now, why they're in charge, why they are doing things the way they're doing, that kind of thing. And and so anyway, that would be something very fascinating to look at some point.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
I wonder if someone has ever done like a qualitative study or quantitative study, I mean, like looking at word heat map usages and all sorts of
right,
things from like, from those older ones and the newer ones. We're from
right.
Serbia. Hello.
Yay! So yeah, those that would be,
Oh,
oh my God. Turn on your mic. You got to tell us what you've got so the people will see you.
Hi, everybody. Some of you may know, in February this year, I got my hands on my very own copy of the Book of Mormon, translated to Serbian. And it was a really, really fun discovery. My friends and I were going to see the Nutcracker Ballet, and as they were coming to meet us over, some of my friends saw it, uh, stood up on a semaphore. And when they told me, I spent the entire Nutcracker just shaking with excitement and with hope that when we go back, the book is still gonna be there, and it actually was. And I finally have a Book of Mormon of my own, which made me very happy. And I can tell you the translation is shit. It is accurate. I am not going to knock them off for that. The translation is accurate. What it is not is good. Like the Book of Mormon, bad poetry, but still poetry. This is so prosaic. It's like I translated it.
Oh God.
They took no liberties. They took, like, we have some pretty the way the Bible, both the Old and the New Testament, were translated into Serbian. The people who did the job did try to put some, poetic spin on it, to keep with the theme. But whoever translated the Book of Mormon did none of that. And it
Okay.
is hilarious to me.
so you mean it's like a word for word, like what this word
Yeah,
means
it
in
is
like a
a
trans
very
like
literal,
dictionary
straightforward.
translation?
Yeah,
Okay.
very literal, very straightforward. Like, the first thing that I did was look up "It Came to Pass" because I was the most curious about how they translated that, and they just translated it into what would be translated like into English is "It happened." Whereas there are words, in Serbian, there are ways that you can translate "It came to pass" so it would sound like old timey and poetic and stuff. And it's
Oh my
just,
God.
it's great. I am at the moment waiting for a handyman. As you can see from the way I look, um, we have had some plumbing issues here, and
Yikes.
it's still very hot. We're on like fifth or sixth heat wave here.
Oh
Oh
no.
God.
Yeah, it's really bad. It was 37 degrees Celsius
Ugh.
today, like over 90.
Yikes.
So as soon as he comes over, I'm gonna have to leave. But I just
Right.
wanted to show you this because I know Bryce hasn't seen it.
I
That is
know.
super cool. I
Yeah,
love it
you
so
told me
much.
about it. You sent me a picture of it on the
Yeah,
semaphore.
it was
Oh,
it
that
was
was the
really awesome.
best.
The
And that's,
funniest part,
yes,
sorry, the
you're okay.
funniest
Go.
part when we saw it, the way it was placed, it was right under an ad for a herbal version of Viagra.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's the best. See, that's one thing I wondered about too, because English is such a weird language because it's such a hodgepodge of so many. And you have with a word, it can have 27 different meanings in English, but in another language, they will have 27 different words. And so I wonder how often that translation gets really fucked up.
Well, I I admit I haven't read the whole thing. I just like went through the passages that I
Yeah.
know so I can compare. But I know from reading poetry in class, because we have in both elementary and high school, we have a very big accent on poetry, and you have to like learn it. You have to learn it by heart, and there's like reciting and stuff and yada yada. We talked about that recently, Shannon.
Yes, we did.
Um, and later, much later in life, I got a chance to read some of those poems in the original English, and it's not hard. It's You can do it. You can absolutely do it, but you have to have a heart for it, definitely, because you can tell when the person who read the poem and translated it actually understood the poem. Because sometimes I would read a poem by an English or an American author, and like it would be nice, but I wouldn't really get it. And then when I read it in English with the English vocabulary that I have, I would actually understand what I didn't understand
Right.
until then. Like I had uh with eats, for example, I had that problem. Like I can't say the translation was bad because it wasn't, but you can't really translate the idea if the wordplay can't be translated properly.
Right. That makes sense.
Very
Yeah, and it comes
interesting.
off in prose too, like with Pratchett, for example. I read Pratchett in Serbian first, of course, and then when I read it in English, I understood that how much work the translators who did the Serbian translation actually did to convey the spirit, if not the literal translation of the words.
Right.
Because I don't know, like you haven't read Pratchett, so you don't know. Um, he uses a lot of like folk language, and
Right.
you kind of have to find the equivalent of that in the language that you're translating, so the sentences make sense even if they aren't literally translated. Like the spirit of what is said is preserved, and that's, I think, much more important.
That makes sense. It's like a book I read that was originally German. It was a
Mm-hmm.
mystery novel, and I was reading it translated in English because I don't know any other languages. And there were so many American terms in there that I was like, I don't think that's a German term. I don't think they use the same terms for their legal system that we do, like defense attorney and all that shit. And I was like, this is throwing me out, knowing it's set in Germany, talking about German people, and
There
it's
is
like, yeah,
there's a fun story about that. There's a German comedy variety hour, kind of like SNL, that actually did a sketch about that, about how much people start believing, like from watching American procedurals, which are very popular in Europe.
very popular.
They
Yeah,
start mixing up American law with the law of their actual countries.
exactly.
It's a really good sketch. If I can find the link, I'll send it to you. There's a translation and everything, so there's nothing
Yeah.
missed. But it's a really good sketch. I laughed my ass off on it.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, it's like because it's like talking about the legal system in England, where there's a difference between a solicitor, a lawyer, all these things, and there's different
Yeah,
levels and everything else.
solicitors, lawyers, barristers, and
Yeah,
there's one more I can't
it's one more. Yeah.
remember.
Whereas a solicitor in America is a salesman. They have nothing to do with the law. And so, yeah, Americans just don't get it. So anyway, yeah, we're really off topic, but this is
Yeah.
this is me and Bryce.
That's the part of that's the fun of all of this.
I know. And when I get together with friends from Serbia, it's like we're both just going to be taking over the whole thing and talking. She's why I want to travel around the world. She and Cot are why I want to go on the other side of the world.
Hmm.
So anyway, so what do you guys recommend? What do you think we should talk about on the show at some point? Who has ideas? I know you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
I would like to see more history.
History.
Yeah,
More history?
More history, yeah.
Just broadly?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
That
I
is
mean,
true.
we have a whole bunch of topics in the whiteboard document that are history related. So maybe we just need to prioritize checking some of those off of the list.
Yeah.
Very true.
For example, we have the anti-vice squad in Salt Lake City in the early 20th century. George P. Lee, we really want to do a
Oh,
dive
yeah.
onto George
God,
P.
we got to get
Lee.
into that.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Swearing
Temple Walk.
elders.
Oh,
What was that?
Oh,
Swearing elders. That would be fun.
swearing elders?
Are you familiar with them?
No.
Swearing elders like missionary elders or general authority
No.
elders?
They were a group of intellectuals in Utah who would meet. This was during the 50s and 60s. Some of them became apostles, some were apostles. And the apostles would come and present to them, and they were just as, heretical as you could be. Nothing was off limits. It was like Sunstone for the Mormon elite.
Very
I haven't
interesting.
even heard of that. That's awesome.
That is immediately on the whiteboard list right now.
Oh my God. Because I was just like, what? Because the chapter I'm covering up with Hugh Nibley, he swore in it a few times. And I'm like, what? You
Yeah,
did this? What?
Nibley went to the swearing elders pretty regularly.
Did he? That doesn't surprise me.
Also, I can't remember who, but one of the swearing elders, Bruce R. McConkie, came to defend Joseph Fielding Smith's stupid book about anti-evolution.
Right.
And Bruce R. McConkie would not shut up. He was standing and filibustering, and one of the people there said, "God damn it, Bruce, sit down."
Oh my God, that is so McConkie. Holy shit.
Yeah, that reminds me of J. Golden Kimball. That might be a fun topic.
Yeah,
Yes.
that Kimball would be fun. Yeah.
Oh my God,
See,
yeah.
yeah, we haven't. I don't think we have J. Golden Kimball on here.
No,
I
we
mean, we have
don't.
J. Reuben Clark, but that's a very different person.
Very
Different
different
person,
person.
You just have
yes.
to
Yeah,
work on your
I
J.
think,
Golden Kimball voice.
yeah,
He
yes.
sounded like this.
Because they would tell him to stop swearing, and he'd be up there in general conference going, "They told me not to swear, but I'm going to say what I want," kind of thing. He's
Or
one
they
of the
say-
reasons why
yeah.
they had to start submitting their talks ahead of time. And so he was, and so
Yeah.
was LeGrand Richards.
He got in trouble, and Heber J. Grant made him follow him to keep him in line.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh God, yeah, that'd be fun to talk about.
Excellent.
Uh,
Added to the
uh,
list as well. Oh, those are
yeah.
fantastic topics. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Big fan.
Excellent. Okay, what else?
I'm trying to think. I should go back through my messages to Bryce so that I can publicly call him out for all of the shit that I've sent him in the past.
We've gotten a few. There's one that we want to do, and I've had it sitting there in the back of my mind a lot. But movies and literature after Mormonism for post-Mormons. And because I don't know about you, but for me, that kind of changed. Not what I watched, but how I felt about it when I watched. Because I mean, there was the whole thing of, because I was watching R-rated movies since I was a teenager, but because we weren't supposed to, you weren't and that kind of thing, because you're Mormon, and it was for the strength of the youth and all that shit. So, and I had BYU bishops that actually would ask that at the end of a temple recommend interview, if you were watching R-rated movies, and they wouldn't give you one if you were. So I wouldn't watch for a month before, and then I could say I wasn't watching them. That's how I got through my ecclesiastical endorsement interviews too. I was not the only one. There were hundreds of us doing this. But anyway,
How dare you lie to your bishop,
I
Shannon?
know. What was I
Gasp.
thinking?
Clutch my
I have been
pearls.
lying to them since I was a teenager, because they would ask me about masturbation. Anyway, so the reason that kind of sneaky little I'm doing something wrong, I'm not supposed to do feeling went away after leaving Mormonism. But also there with literature, there were things I found afterwards that everything changed, like say Da Vinci Code. When I read Da Vinci Code, I was just like, you can't do that with Jesus and the whole heritage of Jesus. The priesthood doesn't go to a woman, and all this shit. And so it was just really highly offensive to me as a TBM. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, it's just a fucking story. Who cares? And it is
Yeah.
a good story. It's very well written. Though Angels and Demons was written better, and it's kind of a copy of Angels and Demons, which is first, not in the movies, but side
Also,
note there.
his best book is Deception Point, Dan
Yeah,
Brown's.
yeah.
Um, One just cool spin on exactly what you're saying, Shannon, is I guess two things. One, I didn't watch R-rated movies when I was a Mormon, and I'm a cinephile like you are, Shannon.
Yeah.
And so I always have these embarrassing I've never seen The Matrix. A huge blind spot in my pop culture consumption.
Wow.
There's stuff like that all over the place. So that's one, is that it's a little bit embarrassing to live the Mormon life with media, especially in post-Mormonism. But then also taking off the Mormon goggles when you watch or read something. Because like I read Les Miserables as an example, and I was like, this is the best, most Jesus-y, Mormon-y
Yeah.
book in the entire world. And then you leave Mormonism, figure out who Victor Hugo actually was and what he believed, and then the book is completely different when you don't
Yes.
have those goggles on.
Right. And especially because general authorities quoted a lot as the story of repentance, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so, yeah,
He
it's
was he was responding to Dostoevsky's The Idiot.
hmm and there's so much in that I think we also miss because we don't understand the mores of the time. There's much I've learned since then.
Yeah.
You know,
It's definitely not about repentance.
it's not. It
It's
is
about the
not.
system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much of that. There's also other things like I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show or not, but in that time period, if a man took on a young woman as a ward, it was usually to raise her up to be his wife. It was either
Yeah,
that or she was his natural child, meaning his illegitimate child, as they called him a natural child then. And so the reason why Valjean is so angry at Marius is because he intends to marry Cosette once she's old enough. And he's like, no, you can't have her. And I'm just like, there's so much that just feels like incest with that. Technically speaking,
yeah.
it's not, but
There's actually a name for that. It's called wife husbandry.
there you go. I was trying to
Ooh,
remember what it was called. I knew there was a term for it, and I knew you would be able to say it.
that made my skin crawl, Serbian friend. By the way, Serbian friend, it's so good to see your face.
No.
I
Hello.
pictured your face a lot after your episode. It's very good to see your face.
Oh God,
It
yes.
is.
Likewise.
Oh my God. So yeah. Oh, good. Okay.
All right.
Because
So added a bunch here. So we got the Swearing Elder Society, apparently, which is I'm excited about that. Golden Kimball, obviously, and then tabooism. I just generally what we were just discussing. I just entered into tabooism and literature and art post-Mormon and removing kind of the taboo allure of it.
right.
And having different perspectives. And I even shared in the notes section of that, Tanner, your story about reading Les Mis, and having a totally different reading of it after you read it without the Mormon goggles on. I think that's a really broad and big topic, and that might even be something good for sending out as a survey
Oh
out to
God,
our
yeah.
listeners and say,
Yeah.
hey, what are some things that you read, while you were Mormon and then after you're Mormon and had a totally different perspective on or watched or whatever. I think that could be a really fun one.
I need to bring something up. I don't mean to dominate, but I loved your coverage of Skinwalker Ranch, Bryce. And I would love to just have you deep dive into more bullshit, and tell it in a cool way. Because you told the Skinwalker story in the way that appeals to dark-souled individuals who like hearing about cryptids and shit like me, but then also gave the good context. So anything like that would be amazing. Like there's that Utah's notorious in ufology because Mormons are gullible. But what is it called? The Uinta Display. I can't remember. There's a very famous book in ufology about UFOs in Utah. Plus, I had a conversation with my uncle and my dad this week about how they saw several UFOs.
I mean, I saw some when I was a kid. I thought they were the coolest thing. Like we would go out UFO watching at night until we learned that they were actually just night migrating birds that the moonlight was reflecting off of their shiny feathers. But we thought it was UFOs. It was great. It was like
Yeah,
stars,
there's
moving
always an
stars.
explanation.
There always is.
Yeah.
Well, and funny thing is, UFO doesn't mean alien. It just means unidentified flying object.
You don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
That's
precisely.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Unidentified by the observer as well. That's
exactly.
the thing. Who often is not trained in looking at the night sky. And there's weird shit up there.
there is
Mhm.
weird shit up there. There was one time in the apartment we lived in previous to here where I was outside and I'm watching these like lighted things dropping down in it was really in a rhythm, but I'm watching it from the sky and I was like, what the hell? You know, I was like, I've seen enough movies. I'm wondering if somebody's dropping bombs on us, you know, and I couldn't tell what the aircraft was that it was coming from because of the way the sky was at the time. And it took a while. And finally, I was just like, okay, this to me is a UFO because I have no idea what the hell is going on. And I couldn't find out anything. And I was asking military friends, and they're like, I don't know, that could be anything. Could be, you know, flares or whatever, just tracking something. But I was like, would that be done over a city though? You know, but it was weird. Never did find out what the hell it was. So yeah. Fun stuff. Well, of
That's
course,
awesome.
Mormons are going to get sucked into that as well because Mormons believe that Jesus isn't just the savior of this world, but of every other human occupied world in the whole entire universe. So, and of course, they all look like us because, you know, they
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. And there's Quakers living on the moon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Of
of course. And it's
Yeah.
made of green cheese. Okay.
I mean, that actually might be fun, in addition to like UFOs, and ufology and stuff in Utah is like cryptids, Mormon cryptids. Because I mean, there's
Oh
like
yeah.
Cain has such a rich history in Mormon, like in Mormonism. I mean, I have
My cane sign.
I have my
Yeah.
Cain sign over. It's hanging up. It's you can just barely see it right now by second class seats up there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like so the Mormons have their own like spin on existing cryptids. So I think that could be a really fun episode as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you a journal entry from a pioneer, my ex-wife's ancestor, who has a firsthand account of the Bear Lake monster.
Oh, yes, please. Yes, I want to read that. That's fantastic.
Oh, good.
We have a comment from one of our panelists here. It says every Utah Mormon I talked to had a Bigfoot story. Yeah, it's really common. Really,
Yes,
really, yeah.
that's very true. I didn't because my dad's like, it's not true. My dad's engineer, so yeah. But okay, we'll get into none of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was hard with my dad because he would take Occam's razor to everything, and he's very logical in his thinking, and so he just didn't let you think weird stories. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Ah. There's another suggestion in the chat on YouTube where they said, would love to hear a deep dive into the EFY program. My parents sent
Yeah.
me in high school to the BYU AFY when I started having doubts about the church. Bad choice by them. It made me doubt more. And so I think that would be actually interesting because it's gone both ways with kids. And so I will say, when I worked at the BYU bookstore, the best customers we had all year, the kindest, the most polite, and all that shit, were EFY. The worst, absolute, hands down, worst ones we got that were the most rude, most, everything else were the CES, the church
Sure.
education system. So they were the worst. And then the second worst was the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
We had the worst shoplifting when the Boy Scouts were there. It was nuts. In fact, at the time I was there, as security expert, the guy in charge of security in the bookstore, he was a scoutmaster. So he would wear his uniform. So then when the security people grabbed the Boy Scouts for stealing, they had to face up to a scoutmaster to explain why.
Yeah.
It was nuts. So we actually had codes for when somebody was shoplifting, like all stores do. But what they would do on those, I can't remember what they called it. It's like a big weekend. It would happen for 2 or 3 weekends in a row. And they would come and do all the merit badge stuff, powwows, or I can't remember. Anyway, we would do these. They would just do a call over the intercom every 15 minutes. Security to here, security to this place, security to this place. None of those were real security calls, but it scared the Boy Scouts. Anyway, all right, tangent done.
I had to bring up Bigfoot again. Do you want me to read the sign?
Yes, please do. Absolutely.
Yeah, in this house, we believe Bigfoot is real. He is caniously able. He survived the flood. He wanders the earth, and he spoke with David W. Patton in Tennessee in 1835.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Uh,
All right, that was
It's a fantastic sign. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
The legacy of Martin Harris, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Just being gullible.
Mhm.
Yep.
Great man for spooks.
A great man for seeing spooks. Yep.
Oh, that's funny. I wonder about, remember the road shows that we
Oh,
used to
yeah.
do?
Oh yeah, I did many road shows.
Yeah.
You're not talking like Antiques Roadshow, like the TV
no,
show.
the Mormon ones
Huh.
that were done, and it was done in your stake, and you each put on kind of like a mini musical kind of thing.
And often in blackface.
Yes, that would happen.
Oh
And
shit. Huh.
so last one I was supposed to be involved in. God, when was this? This was like 2001, 2000, somewhere in there. And they put us in charge. The theme that year, I don't know why they put us on the activities committee because we didn't go to any activities, but it's probably why they did it. But they wanted us because it was going to be musicals, and they were like, you should do Grease. And I was like, I don't want to do Grease. And we were actually coming up with how to do Little Shop of Horrors, and then they replaced us. So I had somebody else in charge who did do Grease, which I was like, why do you want to do a musical about two kids, teenage kids in high school where he turns her bad? Why? Everything against Mormonism. Why? Yeah.
It's a fair
whatever.
point.
But then again, Little Shop of Horrors, what do you do with that?
Shannon, I just need to say that one of my first roles ever was I played Adam in a road show, and it was a rewrite of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers called
Okay.
it
So
was
you're the
Seven
head
Brides
brother.
for Seven Brethren.
Oh, fuck. Oh, my God.
They, the song "Sobbin' Women" from Seven
Mhm.
Brides for Seven Brothers. They rewrote it based on that the story of the Lamanites doing the same thing, which I think is in Mosiah.
Is in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Which
They
to
stole the
me
daughters.
proves Joseph was just quoting Plutarch. Joseph was ripping off Plutarch in that story.
Ah, oh, my God. Oh, God. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
the Singles Ward movie has a joke that the modern version is Seven Brides for One Brother.
yep. That's it. That's it.
Uh,
Oh, God. I hate that movie. I just
It's
hate
so
that
bad.
movie. Yeah.
Not a very good example of respecting consent in that movie.
No, not at all. Oh my God. Yeah. I hate that one.
Well, Millie
th-
does kick him out.
I know. You know what though? What was hard for me after leaving Mormonism is looking at musicals and just hating him now. There's so many that I can't watch anymore. And there's some I don't dare watch because I'm afraid of how it's going to taint the story. Um, I mean, I already had issues with the ending of My Fair Lady because I was like, you just made her go back to this abusive situation like it's all okay, which
Shaw
that's
was
not even
rolling in his grave.
exactly. I was like, that's not even the original story. She left and stayed gone and had a, yeah, I was like, this is a strong woman. That's like, oh God,
They actually changed the ending. Like they have her walk off.
I
Like just
know. That's what the actual ending is supposed to be. And oh God, there's this one, oh shit. Ibsen, Henrik Ibsen, The Dollhouse. Same thing with that.
Oh,
When they filmed it, they had her look at the children and decide to stay. And I'm like, you missed the whole point of the play. God damn it. So those things irritate me. All right. Literature, Shannon stories. Yep. I wrote a paper on that dollhouse once about how the Tarantella scene is shows exactly what's happening in it because a tarantella properly performed, because I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about with the tarantella. It's a type of music or dance that it goes back into Italy where for a while they thought this one spider that was in their fields, if it bit them, the only way to cure the poison was to do this just crazy wild dance, which of course means it wasn't poisonous. And so, but that's how you get rid of the poison in you. And so during harvest time, if somebody got bit, he would stop and they would all do this tarantella dance and everybody be happy. And so some people would probably claim to be bitten who weren't. But the best way to perform one, even, I mean, to have one written down, the notes written down or whatever, or even planned out moves is almost wrong because it's almost out of control dancing or playing or whatever. So in there, the pivotal scene is she's trying to do a tarantella dance and her husband is prescribing every movement with her and how she breaks free and does her own. And I was like, that's the point of the play. Anyway, I was rather proud of that paper. My teacher
I
was like,
can't help.
she didn't know about that, about the tarantella. And I was like, finally, I presented something you've never heard of before. This is great.
nice.
I can't help but nerd out with you, Shannon. Is that why in Pirates of Penzance the cops all sing Tarantula?
Yes. Yep.
It is? That's so cool.
I know. It's fun. So my favorite piece, no, my second favorite piece I've ever played on the cello was a tarantella, actually. And
That's
so,
so cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we should do one on this with the road shows and musicals and that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Road shows. I will add road shows slash musicals.
Okay, good.
Musicals in churches and stakes. Uh,
If you
Just
do
like maybe
musicals, you have to watch that trilogy I sent to both of you.
or like Mormon media. That'd be a good topic.
That's a topic all on its own. Yeah.
And how
Yep.
it turned Mormons into ex-Mormons. Will Swenson, every Satan at the temple.
Saturday's Warrior.
mhm.
Yes.
Oh God. You know, I've never seen Saturday's Warrior.
You've not?
I've never seen it. I've managed to avoid it. It was like, yeah, there's some things I just tried to see how long I could go without seeing something or hearing something. So like Frozen, I didn't watch until I managed to not hear Let It Go, the song, for a year and like 3 months. And then when I finally heard it randomly, I didn't realize what I was hearing until it got to the chorus. Then I'm like, okay, fine, now I got to watch the movie. But then I was like, why did I wait so long? This is actually really good.
It is good.
Fantastic.
It's one of their top ones, but yeah. Um, I had a book about, I think, I can't remember if I actually bought it or not. I need to look over that had to do with music with Mormons or something. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I'll have to look and see if I have that. Huh. Okay. That'd be fun.
That's a really interesting, and I like kind of viewing that angle of it too, where like Mormons will sometimes rewrite classics to push like a Mormon narrative, a Mormon slant, take away from something, and in doing so completely miss the entire point of what the original literature was, what the real play is all about.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Shannon segment for sure.
Saturday's
Yeah.
Warrior would be a whole segment in and of itself. There's a lot to talk about there.
For
And
sure.
it changed doctrine for decades.
It
People
did,
literally
yes.
believed that they had met their spouses in the pre-existence and that their kids all existed in the pre-existence.
Mhm.
Yep. And we all chose each other ahead of time. And yeah, there, even at EFY, there would be speakers talking about some of that. And then finally, the church authorities were like, you got to stop saying that. So then I would hear them saying, well, only if your patriarchal blessing says this, you have already chosen him. But otherwise, it's going to be, it could be anybody. And so you could have a good marriage with anybody, because that's another thing is people would think that because they had a terrible marriage, it's because they chose the wrong, they didn't get it right. They aren't married to the one they chose in the pre-earth life and all that shit. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, there's so much of that. It's
Well,
like the
yeah, and
whole,
also it motivates
babies.
people to stay in abusive relationships too.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Like if you believe that you chose this person, it's like, oh well, yeah, so maybe they're abusing me, but this is who I was destined to marry in
Yeah.
the premortal
Mhm.
existence too. It's like it's fucked up in
Well,
so many directions.
that's such an interesting concept as it is, because outside of religion, that's the concept of a soulmate.
Mhm.
And there's one author, a Jaff book, of course. See, I'm bringing it in, bringing Pride and Prejudice in. Anyway, she wrote it on soulmates. And in it, there were people that they have this inner song and their soulmate has the matching song. And so all throughout this, what I found interesting was that there would be same-sex ones together, which if it was their soulmate, it was legal for them to get married, not for anyone else to same sex, but if they were soulmates. But also, it got into the whole thing of what if they aren't a good person? What if your soulmate is a bad one and treats you badly? You have no choice and everything. And I was just really liked that. So, yeah, oh, we could have some fun with that. I would go on 27 tangents with that. Holy shit. Bryce will be there going, Shannon, come back to the point. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it
Your
would be a good
stuff's more
topic.
interesting. Never mind.
I am
Yeah.
just adding more entries to our whiteboard spreadsheet and adding Shannon in the main host column for each of these. It's great.
Of course, of course. We got a suggestion in the chat also of Tim Ballard rewriting Civil War history. Thank goodness he was there.
Yeah. Talking to his spirit medium to learn what was Lincoln really thinking.
Right. Oh my
No, I
God.
mean, I actually only recently found out that a family member is a big fan of Ballard's history books, and I'm like,
Oh God.
oh God,
That
no.
would be fun to like debunk it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be.
Tim Ballard's quote unquote history books. Slash manifest destiny.
There you go.
Because that's always a fun topic to do.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, that's. Oh, we gotta give us some time after the Project 2025 thing.
Yeah,
Oh God.
like we're tapped out on dystopian hellscape future.
Mm.
I don't need to look at dystopian hellscape past, fictionalized past.
Oh my
No,
God.
whatever. Maybe that can be our next shitty Mormon book installment.
Yeah, it
It's
could
not
be.
specifically a Mormon book, but it's written
Right.
by a Mormon who's, well, let's just say in the headlines a little bit.
Just a
Yeah, they'll
bit.
give you more time to research it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Excellent.
we haven't actually decided what our next
No, we
sort of
haven't.
layman is going to
And that's
be.
you.
It is me. Yeah,
So
it'll be my
history is a
turn.
great idea.
Huh. That could be fun. Maybe, oh, this could actually be fun.
Okay.
Juxtapose Fawn Brody's Lincoln biography with Tim Ballard's Lincoln biography.
Oh,
Huh.
yes,
The two of
yes.
them next to each other. I think that could be really fun.
That could be. That could be really fun.
Hmm.
Oh, good idea.
Got the
Yeah.
gear cogs turning. All right,
Oh,
we'll
good.
discuss that a little bit more off air.
Get that. Also, Deliver from Slavery along with Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. Then good old Abe got a hold of in that Book of Mormon.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. That's so fantastic.
Of course, when you look at that, also Lincoln was offered elephants by the King of Siam. Yeah,
Fascinating.
which is funny in and of itself because of what their culture was like at the time. Anyway, all right. Um, what else? What else are some ideas? Let's see.
Tanner Rhodes.
Yeah, I put in the chat to cover same-sex dynamics in the 19th century by Quinn.
Mm, that is a good idea.
That's one of his books I have not yet read, and I want to so much.
Okay.
Changed my life. It's a really good book.
Is this one we should do as a deep dive? Well, because we do shitty Mormon books. Never mind.
Yeah.
This would be more of the main topic rather than media upgrade price. Yeah.
Yeah. That, or it could be a media segment that I do just reviewing that book.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Quinn, he was such a good writer. He was such a good researcher. I want to read that book.
Excellent. Okay.
Yep. That's a wonderful suggestion.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, so we've added a lot of entries here.
We have.
Other history stuff, obviously, do a B.H. Roberts, and I think isn't there a B.H. Roberts biography like coming out really soon, or it just came out?
So. Yeah, I think Deborah Anderson is writing it.
That seems really familiar to me. So maybe once that drops, or if that has already dropped, that would be a good episode to do as well. Because I don't know enough about B.H. Roberts and how he's revered in the community. It's just it's worth spending a bit of time getting to know some of the stories associated with that guy.
Why do we need a new B.H. Roberts biography? We already have one by Truman Madsen.
Yeah, obviously unbiased and
yeah, it's a biography in the way that Tim Ballard wrote a biography about Lincoln.
And a biography like Hugh Nibley in his response to Fawn Brody.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. We have a suggestion also, or not a suggestion, but we have in the whiteboard topic, Dr. Philassus Hurlbut, his story, and therefore Spalding. And I know a bunch of people have asked me about the new Spalding book. And yeah, Shannon, did you go to that Sunstone presentation?
Who was it who did it?
It was Lars Nielsen.
No.
You need to give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of thoughts about that terrible book. But I feel like it merits its own kind of a deep dive because it's hard for me to deal with because the book itself is so poorly written and so poorly done, but it presents a couple of novel data points that I was not aware of, and I'm very interested in like exploring more of. And Joel says I've only read halfway through that book. Yeah, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well, Joel, because in my opinion, it's terribly written. It's not very well researched and sourced, but it does present data points that I was unaware of that contribute to the Spalding theory. And I've always been friendly to the Spalding theory, and agnostic about whether or not it's true. I'm really interested. I'm really interested to see, if there's more to it. But Dan Vogel also apparently did a smackdown of the book on his YouTube channel. I haven't watched that yet as well, so I would need to consume that in addition to the book itself to do a segment.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, Bryce, is that the only criticism I have of naked Mormonism, I mean, far be it for anybody, it's the best thing ever. And I'm not kidding about that. But I do wish that I could hear you talk a little bit about Dan Vogel's arguments against the Spalding theory.
That's fair. Absolutely fair. And I mean, I guess I haven't really given it much given Vogel's criticisms of it much thought because I don't feel like they amount to more than the overall criticism that is commonly levied against Spalding theory in that it is a conspiracy that collapses under its own weight, and that Joseph Smith was sufficiently intelligent to do it. And I feel like I understand both of those points well enough that I don't need to like research more of what he's written about or read more of what he's written about those points. But if there is more to it, then I'm more than happy to look into what Vogel has said.
Yeah.
The thing that I would, oh, sorry, Julie, you go ahead.
I just think apparently he like hates it so much that he took mentions of it out of his books. The Spalding theory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might actually, I'm second guessing it, Bryce, because a lot of his arguments against it amount to, and it is some of my favorite passages from Making of a Prophet are where he points out, here's what was going on historically in early Mormonism, and here's what is in the Book of Mormon at the exact same time, and how he's like addressing specifically things that were on Emma's mind when they lost the baby, and then all of a sudden there's a
Right.
passage about babies being saved, things like that. But that's actually not super strong evidence. It's what makes sense in Dan Vogel's own mind,
Right.
to connect those two things. There's really not a way to have a good documentary case that you can make that these exactly tie to those events.
Right. But I also think that it's like the way that Lars wrote his version of the Spalding model is essentially that there are elements that were contributed by Smith, by Rigdon, by Spalding, and it's a mishmash, right? It's a collaborative project that they all put together. Spalding unwittingly unaware that he was contributing to a religious project. And like I don't want to view it as like whole cloth, as it was like either Spalding wrote the whole thing and then Rigdon, added in the religious stuff and then handed the whole thing to Joseph Smith, or Joseph wrote the whole thing by himself. Like, I think if we look at that, there was a pre-existing manuscript and Joseph added in autobiographical things and Sidney Rigdon added autobiographical things, added in his own theological constraints, constructs, his own arguments against Campbellism and other religions that were going on at the time. I think it just makes it more of a cohesive project, right? It makes it look more of like a cohesive thing instead of just Joseph being this wunderkind who is able to pull from all of these, these extreme and ancient and esoteric traditions. So yeah, and like, look, autobiographical things from Joseph Smith making an appearance in the Book of Mormon, we would expect to see those things if he contributed to writing to it. If he wrote the entire thing out of whole cloth, I would personally expect there to be more autobiographical things in it because he had such a limited amount of lived experience to write about, to draw from in order to write the book, that he was too, he was a young man, right? Like he just didn't have a whole lot of life experience to pull from. So I don't know. There's a lot of ways to look at it. I would be curious to. I am curious about watching Dan Vogel's takedown of the Spalding book, because the book in and of itself is really, really easy to take down.
That's fair. That's
yeah.
fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
like when you have somebody writing about historical figures and like stating unequivocally that they know what was on the person's mind that led them to making a decision, and then not only that decision, but then fabricating entire sets of dialogue between individuals. It's like not only are you like putting yourself in their shoes, which a historian, like you have to be so delicate in the way that you do it, but you're also like creating their mindset and creating a dialogue on top of that. I'm sorry, it's just not a book of history. It's historical fiction. with a couple of interesting data points in it. Anyway, all right, that's my digressions, my ramblings.
Yeah, that was one session you were waiting for at Sunstone.
Oh yeah,
On it.
absolutely. And I feel comfortable saying it now too, because he mentioned it in the Q&A too. When I asked my questions, like, why did you decide to make, why did you make the writing decisions you made? And he was like, well, you reviewed an earlier manuscript. So I'm happy to say now that like he approached me months and months and months, more than a year ago at this point, and said, hey, will you review this book? And I was extremely critical of it. And he took some of my criticisms and made adjustments, but the majority of them he just seemed to ignore. It's fine. It's his book. It's his choice.
Yeah. Interesting. Ooh, yeah, we
Anyway.
know any history stuff, that's Bryce.
Yep, there we go. Now, back onto the EFY program. I never went to EFY. Is that a more modern thing? Is that something that you would have ever gone to, Shannon? Is that what
That
is?
was going on when I was a
I
teenager.
did.
Yeah, a lot of people did. And I never went to EFY itself. There was one time, it's like maybe a senior or a junior in high school, where my parents paid for me and my next younger sister to go to the best of EFY, which was like 2 days or 3 days instead of the full 5 days. And so I got kind of the EFY experience, but it was just the speakers, and it was just, that's all we did. We didn't have the activities. We didn't stay there. We stayed at my older sister's apartment at the time. That was about it. But, that was kind of that thing. Um, but I've heard many speakers talking about it who have spoken at those, or they've traveled to those or whatever. So I think it started maybe in the 70s. I could be wrong, but it was definitely going on in the 80s, all of the 80s. And so yeah, it's not recent. It just really depends on how much your stake pushes for it. And so it sounds like, Bryce, your stake did not. And
It was held at BYU, so it's not really a
mhm.
stake thing.
Well, it is pushed by a stake.
Yeah.
And they would register everyone from the ward to go and all that kind of stuff. They would really push it. So if the stake president was pushing it through all the youth program, then parents were more likely to send their kids to it.
Well, because
That's
like,
what I
Sure.
mean.
because I'm pretty sure that my older sibling went and I
Okay.
did not. And I don't remember the factors. I don't even remember having conversations with my parents of like, should I go or should I not go, or do I want to go even? But I believe my older sibling did go to one year of EFY. But I'm also thinking that happened at like Snow College or something, not at BYU. Was that something different? Would that have been EFY?
No,
No,
because that was
it's
just
usually just at
BYU.
BYU, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Huh, interesting.
Snow College, not a church school. And it was so much smaller too. But yeah, it was, very specifically branded for telling, basically telling student or the kids how they should date and
Mm-hmm.
all this kind of stuff, the whole ice cream metaphor of how do you know if you only like vanilla if that's all you've ever had, if you try all the others and then find out that's all you like. That's why you date all these people. And and if the guy wants to go out with you a second time in a row, you just tell him you can't date the same person twice in a row. He'll get his friends to ask you, and then you get more dates and da, 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 da. So that's how, that kind of thing. Not kissing a lot, no French kissing, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Iris Arc comments, what is left? I assume what is left of EFY there. Because I
Yeah.
know that they've gone through so many like reinventions, reimaginings of it. I don't know if that's what Iris Arc is referring to, but
EFY stands for especially for youth.
yeah.
Yeah. And they all get the strengthening the youth pamphlet there and all this other stuff. So it's a lot of indoctrination on how Mormons want you to date, and how that kind of thing. It's not as much about, I don't think it's as much about how to be respectful to the women, because you still get the, women, the girls are told not to say no to when they were asked to dance.
Yeah, but
And
there's a last dance if they make that clear.
yep.
Yeah.
And so, because it's so hard for the boys to ask, so you can't say no to them. And it's like, yeah, let's go back to the 19th century where if a woman was asked to dance and said no, she had to sit out the rest of the fucking dance. So, yeah, no. Okay.
I
So,
can personally attest that getting a bunch of ragingly pubescent teenagers together and talking to them about hand jobs and French kissing and then putting them in a dance together is not a good way to keep everybody chaste.
Yeah.
yep. And you'd get things where like some of the boys would kind of group together and would find a girl who looks like she wasn't having a good time and go serenade her or something, which I was just like, that would really upset me. I would hate that. But and there's a lot of girls that are introverts that would totally hate that. But them doing it was such a wonderful thing, and the speakers would talk about it every EFY as if to say, now you should go do that, you've lost that loving feeling or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that's also indicative of the movie Top Gun, where he wants to have sex with the girl. Okay. All right. You guys missing the point. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good times.
EFY and award campouts. Two
Oh,
primary Mormon
God.
hookup spots.
Ward campouts. Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I
I
remember
remember a couple of
those.
those.
The
Some of
whole
them were
family would go.
kind of fun.
We had the whole family there, so that was fine. But yes, that could cause autistic kids to go completely crazy. Or Iris, like you are
Yeah,
so right. In
absolutely.
fact, I think there's a lot of them that would just hands down refuse to go. It's like I just wasn't really all that interested. And it's expensive. The parents are having to pay for it
Mm-hmm.
because you're staying there and everything else, and
Yeah,
you're
you stay in
paying
the
all the
dorms.
speakers. Yeah. You
Yeah.
pay the speakers to be there and the whole 9 yards.
And it's
Um,
quite competitive to get in. Like,
yes,
it was
it
hard.
is. Yes. Oh God.
I wonder if it still is.
I'm sure it is. This kind of thing is not, they won't stop that. I mean, when they went to the 3-hour block program for church on Sundays instead of having everything during the week, which that happened midway through my first year in Beehive. So I remember what it was like before that, where we had Sunday school in the morning for 2 hours or an hour and a half. And then in the afternoon, sacrament meeting was an hour and a half. And then you had primary, young women's, relief society during the week. Men had priesthood at 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday and then stayed for, all that shit. So you were all these meetings. And that's when the joke came out that you can always tell a Mormon because they're either going to, coming from, or at a meeting. And so they were like, hey, we need to not make that a joke anymore. So they started the 3-hour block, and everything happened in that 3-hour block on Sundays. But then they found out the youth were starting to think for themselves. So,
we need to keep them
fuck,
coming back a couple of times a week.
we can't do that.
Of
So
course.
they started creating more meetings and more meetings again and again. So, I mean, you don't have something with Relief Society every week. It's once a month, enrichment night or whatever the fuck they call it now. But the youth have something every week. The primary girls, the last couple years, have something every week. And the boys activity night. Well, the boys have scouts. So once the little boys start into Cub Scouts, then the little girls start into activity nights, and then and all for that. And so it's just like it's back to the same thing again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't have scouts anymore.
That's right, they don't. They
I
allow gay people in there. They can't have
and
it anymore.
girls.
And girls.
It's Boy Scouts, not Girl Scouts. I
Dallin Oaks
wonder.
is pretty mad about that. He doesn't like girls.
I haven't actually checked in on what their replacement programs are and how they are, how well they're replacing scouts.
God, I know, right?
Because I remember they were debuting a few programs when the break first happened, and one of them was like the Armies of Helaman or something. It's like,
I don't.
okay, that's a little on the nose. But I don't know if any of them have actually been deployed. I mean, I haven't been to church in so long, so
I
it's
know.
like it's hard for me to be up to speed on what's going on day to day.
Yeah, my most recent church meeting was a funeral. It's
Yeah,
like,
mine
it's
too.
been a while.
Me too.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, that'll be fun.
Hmm.
Oh, there was something I've been playing around on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. New hymns in the hymn
Ooh,
book.
yeah. Actually, Tanner, do you want to vocalize that and share that with the panel? I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, come thou.
Yes, come on, found some there.
Is it really? I
Well,
like that
so
song.
for everybody watching, Tanner just commented, not sure if there's enough here for a segment on the show, but the new hymns that were recently added to the show, or recently added, show a hard turn by the church toward Jesus and grace. Yeah, very, very interesting.
There's several sacrament hymns, and the word grace is in the hymn book, which, I mean, for decades, the church very adamantly opposed ever using the word grace.
Yeah.
And I hear the temple ceremony has been edited to make it more Jesus-y as well.
Yeah.
And shortened again, apparently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do like a whole history of the hymn books,
That would
starting
be
with
a
them.
very
Yeah,
interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because it was really Joseph Smithy originally. Like there's not just praise to the man. What's that? Joseph the Seer, which is
mhm.
super worshipful of Joseph Smith. Yeah,
Yeah,
that might be fun.
yeah. And I mean, that's actually a whole subcategory of history within Mormon history umbrella is the history of hymns. And I've read a couple of articles on hymns and evolution of hymns and hymn books and different editions of hymn books and the values of them as well. So that actually might be something worth going out and finding one of those hymn experts to talk to about this subject because this is, I mean, it's a huge little subfield with its own individual intricacies within the Mormon history field.
Mhm.
And then just a quick personal gripe that women are always expected to be able to play the piano, and all piano players are expected to be able to play the organ, completely different instrument.
Very different instrument. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that gets interesting all in and of itself. And they're less problematic about men playing piano or organ than they were, but it used to be that was kind of the woman's job. Yeah.
We have a
And
comment from one of our panelists as well. My mission president was enraged when he heard the song Amazing Grace in an elder's car.
oh my God.
How the tables have turned.
Holy shit, yeah.
That's funny.
Which one is, oh, what was it that was Ezra Taft Benson's favorite song? And he had a granddaughter or something like that sing it in general conference, a solo, which was so unusual because usually the music was just all a tap choir. But she sang a solo of it. And I'm trying to remember what it was. Um, it might have been Come Thou Found. Oh God. Now I gotta look back on that. Back in the day, in the 80s. Yeah. Okay.
From Benson, I'm surprised it wasn't something that was written by the Birch Society.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. He's the one that sent me on a mission. And so his 90th birthday party happened while I was out on my mission. And that's when everyone could tell he had dementia because they broadcast it
Jeez.
live. So all the visiting general authorities at all the stakes after that had to go out and talk about how they see him acting as a 90-year-old man and as a 90-year-old prophet, because around the same time as when they had to excommunicate George P. Lee. And so, yeah, that's when I met Glenn L. Pace. He was in the presiding bishopric, and it was my last Sunday on my mission. It was state conference, actually. And in fact, he because he had the whole last hour of it, everything after the stand-up wake up hymn. So before it, my mission president and his wife spoke, the stake president spoke, and some random bishop. And that whole time I could see Bishop Pace staring at me, and it was unnerving. And so then during the stand up wake up hymn, which was the Spirit of God, I watched him talk to the stake president, who looked at me, and then walked across the stand and talked to my mission president, who also looked at me and gave me this just diabolical grin. And so then the stake president gets up and he says that Bishop Pace wanted to share his remaining time with two other people. He named me and this other woman from the stake. So I get up there and I was like, my whole mission, I've been hoping I get called on. This is my last Sunday. I was hoping I get called on my last Sunday by the bishop to bear my testimony, because to be heard one last time. I says, but I didn't indicate which bishop I was referring to. And so anyway, so I gave my whole talk, and I told him I was from Utah. I grew up in Utah. I never traveled really. I never lived outside of it until then and all this stuff. But then the other woman gets up and she's like, I'm a Pennsylvania girl. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I've never left Pennsylvania. I just got my mission call and I'm going to Utah. and Bishop Pace was like, I didn't know about either one of those. And I'm like, yeah, you did. It's too coincidental for him not to have known it. But anyway, that's one of the things he did on the Saturday night session, as well as on the Sunday session, was talk about President Benson and him being a prophet. And because he was part of the presiding bishopric, he was part of the excommunication thing. And so with George P. Lee. And so, yeah, that was interesting looking back on it. I mean, at the time I'm like, oh, this is so cool. This is so faith promoting. But now I look back and I'm like, yeah, damage control.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Mhm.
Talking about how scary Benson was in general might be a good topic.
Yeah,
Maybe
topic
even
from
just
Benson, yes.
his BYU speech, the 14 principles of following the prophet, right before he became the prophet, and how a living prophet's better than a dead prophet, and a living prophet is better than the scriptures, and scary dude.
Yep.
Definitely. In fact, I remember when whoever was before him died, and I would hear at church, all these people were like, oh no, now all we're going to hear about is a communist under every bed and blah, blah, blah with President Benson. And it was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well, and Tanner, you had commented, or I think it was you or somebody commented that Matt Harris might be on sabbatical right now. In which case he would be, if we are going to do a second class Saints deep dive, interview him, he would be the right person to bring on and talk about Benson. Because I mean, we talked about him.
2 books about Benson.
Yeah. I mean, the interweaving of the concepts are they're so inextricably tied, right? The church's treatment of Black people, and then Benson and Benson's pull on the leadership before he became prophet, and the culture that he fostered and helped to manufacture was one of white supremacy. So the two subjects are so linked.
He tried to run for president with George Wallace and Strom Thurmond.
Wow, I did not know that.
That says it. That says it right there.
I have this Benson book, and I had him sign it, and he says, I hope none of these man's political ideas rub off on you. I said that to Bryce.
Yep.
That's awesome. I know we had Matt Harris on before, and I think we should do it again.
Yeah, especially for second class Saints too.
Yes.
Yeah. So Benson's 14 Principles of Prophecy talk.
That would be a good topic.
It's a good,
in and of itself.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a good standalone deep dive almost. I wonder if that's one that we should, I feel like we should invite Matt to talk about his most recent book, but maybe talking about the 14 principles. And like, it's also prescient right now too, because, Benson kind of ascending very late into his age. Well, and like right now, right, we have a radical right-wing presidency as it stands. And I mean, I don't know what, I think it was yesterday or maybe today, there was a post on Reddit. Someone was like, "Hey, I'm in the know. Golfed with the GA today, and they said that that Nelson he's totally on the outs, and Oaks is running the show. Nelson doesn't even come to the weekly meetings on Thursday.
gosh.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Nelson might not even be attending this next general conference. Nelson is on the way out, and
Or his birthday
apparently,
party, maybe.
or
Like,
yeah, even the
Oh
birthday
God,
yeah, his
party.
100th.
that's like next
That's,
month, isn't it?
yeah, like in a couple weeks. He
Yeah, it's
turns
like
Oh my
9th
100.
or
God.
something, isn't it? September
Uh,
9th, I
It'll be
think, or something like
televised
that.
and we can all watch him be demented up there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean,
oh,
we're living in the shell church right now. It's run
Yeah.
by Oaks,
oh,
the Oaks show.
Well, and
there's
that's
the
what happened with Gordon B. Hinckley too. I mean, that
Yeah,
started
totally.
with Benson.
Yeah,
Is Gordon B. Hinckley was running the church. Yeah.
exactly.
yeah, there's that new trans policy that came out.
Yeah.
You guys might want to cover it.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that post was referring to the trans policy that Nelson didn't want to do it because he didn't want it part of his legacy. But now, since Oaks is basically running it, that they went forward with it.
Yep.
That trans policy.
Wonder what was the last thing that Nelson actually did.
More
know?
temples.
There's that. Yeah, but it's like what was the last kind of policy change? Was it when he decided to change the Saturday night session to women and girls, and then um, Oaks had to announce it, but then it's never happened. And so I just wonder about that. I'm like, how many things has he actually done, and how much of it is
I
just
mean,
Oaks?
really think about that, right? What
Yeah.
has Nelson done in his presidency? We
Yeah.
got the November 2015 policy,
Yep.
2-hour church.
2-hour
Our
church,
church, revamping that, yeah.
right?
God, I forgot about that.
But everything else that has happened in the past 7 or 8 years or however long he's been prophet has all just been, the majority of it is just the institutional momentum of the corporate machine, right?
Yeah.
More temples are being built, more land is being bought. Those would have happened regardless of who is in the presidency. Those are not part
Exactly.
of Nelson's legacy. So what do we have from him?
The
November
Mormon
policy.
is a win for Satan.
Oh yeah, the can't say
And
Mormon.
Yeah,
That's
can't
the
say
big one,
Mormon. Yeah,
which will change after he dies. Nobody cares.
Immediately after he dies.
I know, right?
exactly.
And that's the thing too, is like with the temples, there's so many that he's just announcing that are never going to happen. We all know they will never happen. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
The
others
Russia
that
one.
are.
Russia and
They,
China.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they've already started the Lehigh one. I could see the construction vehicles out there. They haven't had the groundbreaking yet, but there's like also somebody at TBM recently said to me, they were like, "Oh, there's this one good change that President Nelson has made is having the apostles do the dedications instead of himself." And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, he can't go anywhere. Of course,
Yeah.
they're having them. He has them do it. What can he do? And so,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
I guess I have Benson on my mind, but Benson's son is the one who called out the church for how it's inhumane to force these general authorities to just die in office
Yep.
because of what happened to his dad, President Benson.
Yep. Because
Yeah.
he obviously had dementia there at the end. And
Yeah.
I personally think whatever he did in that excommunication thing of George P. Lee, and because they go into that already predetermining what they're going to do. Every single one of these disciplinary councils are like that. Is I think Gordon B. Hinckley wrote out for him what he needed to say, and that's what he said. And so this whole he's acting as the prophet, the spirit has imbued him and he's being the prophet, is just Gordon B. Hinckley telling him what to say.
Yeah, and you guys can cover some of the legal battles the church has been
Oh,
having to
God,
get
yes.
the temples built.
Oh, that Fairview thing is awful.
Fairview. I feel like Fairview
And
kind
in
of.
Wyoming, Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Cody, Wyoming. Fairview, Texas. Cody, Wyoming. Legal battles. Uh, that's a tough one because it's like it's hard to like drop a pin because like
Yeah.
both of the stories are still ongoing and
That's right.
like it's hard to like cover a story that is still up in the air right now.
Yeah.
But we
Especially
definitely
it's
could.
getting really covered. But I also wonder if we should pull back and do just lawsuits involving the church because,
I
there's so
mean,
many
that's
more.
huge.
That is huge. But if we, I don't know, if we can find something that has slipped through the cracks on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard because a lot of these do get covered everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to look into and see what we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joel comments, I like all the suits. Or no,
Yeah.
like all of the lawsuits. Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, we would have to focus it somehow to narrow the search a little bit. Yeah. And also this is like lawsuits that actually went forward and are part of the public record as opposed to lawsuits that ended in settlement with NDAs that nobody will ever
Nobody
see.
knows how it
There are
went. Yeah.
way more of those. I mean, probably by orders of magnitude more of those than actually ever went up in front of a judge.
Yeah.
So, that's a tough one.
Yeah. That's a
That's a really
tough one.
tough one.
Yeah. We still
But
need to do another Mormon money, an update
yeah,
basically on the
an update.
series.
Yeah, to include
Yeah.
all of the SEC and everything. And
Mhm.
I also want to include the mass tort lawsuit against the church for clawing back tithing, because
Mhm.
that's still currently ongoing right now.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious. Like the Gaddy VLDS that was dismissed a long time ago. That's totally off of the radar. But the John Huntsman suit, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's
So I'm
not.
curious to see how that evolves.
Yeah. Mm, good times.
Yep. He actually has the money to fight it too.
Yeah, which is I think why he's doing it, why he's making such a big deal out of it. He's one of the few who can. Which I think he knows he's making a point. And that's the important thing. Regardless of whether he wins or loses, in the end, he is making a point and in the court of public opinion. So
Yeah,
that in and of itself, I think is worthwhile. Yeah. Huh.
absolutely. I see Tanner, you also commented Harold B. Lee when we were chatting earlier.
He
Are
was
you
reminding me who was before Benson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was like, Harold Bailey, Shannon. But he was not interrupting me.
yeah. Okay. My mistake.
It's okay. I forget the order a lot of times.
But yeah, and yeah, another one that we want to do another history deep dive is Heber J. Grant. I mean, obviously he was so
Oh, he's
formative for the
interesting.
church, reforming it away from its polygamy narrative and everything. That's a really fascinating
That would
individual
be
there.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, one thing we should do, we need to point out when every time we do these history ones, especially with ones like these, like Heber J. Grant and Ezra Taft Benson and all this shit, is to point out that, because somebody said that we were looking at an older audience with this. And I'm like, no, that's not why we do this. We do this because what happened then formed what is happening now. So
Precisely.
for us to understand what's going on now, you have to understand the history. To go back to that quote that those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it kind of thing. But it's similar to that. But it's like we need to make sure we get across the point that this is vital to understand the church of today. And so that's another thing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, why it's important to focus on these characters and individuals from the 20th and especially late 20th centuries, because like that's much more recent, right? Like the people who are currently running the church were junior apostles at the time when Spencer Kimball and Benson and Packer and Peterson were the senior apostles who were dictating the direction of the church. So, they're standing in the shadows of these monstrous figures. and trying to live up to that legacy. And Bednar is not going to be any different, right? So like in
No.
some ways, by talking about these figures from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we are also talking about the future of the church probably into the 2040s.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's important. Like when you think of the priesthood ban, every one of those idiots up on the stand were very much mature adults before the blacks were given the priesthood. So
Yes.
they all have an intimate history with that horrifying racism.
Yep.
Yeah. Many of them were in like CES or were like, cutting their teeth in church leadership positions at that time in stake presidencies and branch presidencies and stuff like that too. So like, yeah, or BYU, right?
Yep.
So like they are individuals who, I mean, they were having meetings with concerned members of the church who wanted blacks to get the priesthood, and they were the ones who were abdicating towards, oh, well, we haven't received revelation. And now the script is flipped, time has changed. 1978 comes along and suddenly, oh no, well, we don't know why God was discriminatory just last year. We can't figure it out.
Oh my God.
It's all fascinating.
Yes, it is.
I had another media suggestion that is a little bit cheating because Zelf on the Shelf is currently reviewing it, but I want to hear Shannon review 10 Issues Among the Nephites. I think it would be so funny.
Oh my God. I remember when those started coming out because I was working at BYU bookstore and they were bestsellers. Those were along with The Work and the Glory. Oh my God.
Yeah. Your
Oh my God.
millennial audience was very much raised on 10 Issues Among the Nephites.
Yes,
sure.
we were.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And I'm one of those that I deliberately avoided as much as I possibly could.
I loved them so much. I
Really?
loved those books. Yeah, when I was a kid.
Excellent. Oh, good. Oh my God. Yeah, that's something that would be fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
That
God.
is added to the Media of Great Price
yeah.
whiteboard list.
Thank you for not saying Jack Wayland. I read all those in the 80s and oh my God, I look back and I'm like, holy shit, why did I do that? And then there's the Jorgensen brothers. Yeah. Oh my God.
One that was really good, Shannon. I don't know if do you know who Dean Hughes is? Children of the Promise.
Yeah, yeah.
Those hold up actually. He was a very liberal Mormon. There are these really cool books about a Mormon family going through World War II, and
Oh,
then
interesting.
an even better series after that of the next generation of that family going through civil rights.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Those books are good.
Huh.
I met the author, Dean Hughes, back in my Utah days.
And how was it?
It was cool. It was at I'd received an award for something that I had written back then, and he walked up to me afterward, and we just had a little chat about what I wrote and how I liked his books.
That's cool.
What was it you wrote? Book, story, play,
I
poem?
I think it must have been a poem back then.
Uh-huh.
I can't really remember. I think it was probably a poem.
Okay. Very cool. I always had a hard time writing poetry. In fact, friend from
Me too.
Serbia, friend from Serbia and I were talking about this a couple days ago, where about poetry and how teachers teach it wrong, and especially in competitions, because you're not allowed to give any expression to the poem when you're reciting it in a competition, which, I mean, I understand it makes it easier for them to make sure you got it right, but it makes it very, very hard to understand the poem. And that's how it gets taught so much. And so I hated poetry forever until I finally had a friend who was like, Shannon, poetry has to be experienced, not heard. It's the expression that makes it the story, not the words themselves. And so we were talking about it because there's a couple Instagrams I follow that where they just recite poetry. So anybody who's following me has seen me put it on my story a lot. Because there are these two guys that they have these incredibly deep voices, which I just love a deep man's voice, period. And they give the poetry and you experience it listening to them. And so it's poetry is like music in words, because it's a feeling, it's an expression, it's an emotion, it's all of that. It's not information. And so that changed everything. So yeah, we had some fun talking about that. Too bad she's
That's
not
awesome.
here.
I could listen to you talk about reading all day, every day.
Yes.
Thank you. One of my nephews was like, which was your feminist literature episode? And I told him, because he's like, I want to go listen to it. And so he listened to it and he comes back to me the next day and he's like, okay, Shannon, this should have been 10 episodes. I was like, dude, this is
Yeah,
a major in college. But yeah, he's like,
it
I
was
could
so
listen to you talk about this for weeks on end. This was so cool. Now I'm going to go read this and this and this and this. I was like, I succeeded at what I wanted to do.
it was amazing. My daughter and I read it after that episode, after you
Did you?
and after I had visited Bryce.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So those are fun. I love it when I can talk about books. It's an easy tangent for me to do, but I love it especially when I can actually plan it out. And then I feel like I'm teaching or something. But books, that's just something I have always loved. I learned to read before I even started school. I think I was 4 when mom taught me, and that was a thing I loved growing up. Yeah. I don't know many people who read as much as I do.
I don't
I don't
either.
I don't think I know anybody who reads as much as you.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
I know. What was it, like 1,316 books last year on my Goodreads thing once I started actually counting them. But yeah, that was funny. Yeah,
Iris Arc left a YouTube comment that says possible topic, the church's treatment of people with physical and mental disabilities. And I would very much
yes,
add to that the evolution of those of the way that the church treats disabled people with disabilities.
absolutely.
Because I think that's very interesting. And like different church leaders have said different things about people with disabilities too. So yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic. With that
That
is added to
that
Whiteboard.
is, especially since the way people speak about them has been vastly different, because there's been the ones who are born with disabilities were the more valiant in the pre-earth life. So they're given these bodies that, because they just need a body. Or they are the ones who are bad, who are not that great in pre-earth life. So therefore
Exactly.
they were cursed with this. And it's vastly different, because I grew up with oh, you were blessed. I heard about it because of this hand, which was incredibly stupid, because I'm like, I'm not disabled. I can't play woodwinds. Okay. I can't play the guitar. Okay. Does that make me disabled? No. It just means I can't play those.
I mean, I think by the very definition of it, yes, you are disabled from being able to play those things.
From
So,
those,
but yes, but
technically
that's
speaking,
where
but yeah.
yeah, but that's where disability runs a spectrum,
Yeah.
right? Like there are disabilities that interfere with your life or that you have to
Yeah.
accommodate in your life to different degrees, and this just happens to be one of the more minor disabilities. You were still able to play violin, viola, cello, and bass with it with your hand, just not something with
Exactly.
a wider fretboard like a guitar or whatever.
Well, and with the guitar, these two fingers get used for chords, and I don't use those two at all.
Right.
And so I would have to learn the other way, is if I did.
Yeah.
And they just have to switch it. And it's the same thing with woodwinds, is there's a lot of you have a lot of things to cover with those. And yeah. So I'd have to have them very specially made.
Yeah.
The brass were easy for me to learn.
Because
They were very easy. Yeah.
they're just
So
valves, right? I mean, you're just
yeah,
pressing
I
on
mean,
the
at most you
plunger.
got 3. The valves,
Yeah.
you've got the trombone, the French horn, same thing. It's just 3.
Yeah.
And
There you
so,
go.
yeah, those were easy. I don't know about the percussion. I never made it that far learning percussion.
I mean, if you can hang on to a drumstick, like you should be all
Yeah, you can
right,
do
right?
it.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because
finger
I
around it.
probably could have. I just didn't make it that far. Yeah,
Hmm.
because when I was a music major, I was going to be a teacher, and so you had to take, um, woodwinds, 2 semesters of it, and 2 semesters of brass, 2 semesters of percussion, all that. I still had to take 2 semesters of the strings, even though I already knew how to play all of them. And
Interesting.
my teacher from high school was the one teaching it at BYU. And she went to the department head going, can Shannon just test out of these? There's no point in her taking them. She could teach the class. And they're like, no, she still has to take it. So she was like, Shannon, you can do whatever you want. I was like, cool. Okay.
Awesome.
So I
Yep.
did.
Good.
I mean, I was majoring on 2 fucking instruments for the first 2 years. For God, anyway. Tangents. Okay. So, yes, we need to talk about that. Because, I
Definitely.
mean, that's one thing we heard a lot of, like with Down syndrome, with those who were born with, oh God, what is it that it's called now? It's no longer the R word. Um, Mentally disabled. And so, who never really grow past the age of 8.
Mhm.
I mean, we have it's now called the Utah State Developmental Center for those who are disabled and who cannot take care of themselves. And that's right up near me and was actually part of my stake for a long time. And the bishops for the ward there would be called from my stake. And yeah, and so we grew up with that being there. And so that's what we heard all the time is those who, never mentally grow up long enough, they are guaranteed the celestial kingdom. And so they're here to test and try us. And so that's another reason why people were against abortion still is that parents are often given the choice. And it's like, I mean, with my son, that was one thing during that 15 days he was alive because he kept having brain hemorrhages the second week of his life. And each time they were getting progressively worse. And there was one point where he's like, okay, you got a 50% chance he's going to be mentally disabled. Do you want to continue? And we continued. And then 2 days later, he had another one that just flooded the brainstem. And, you know, and that's when I said, no, we'll shut it down. If he has to live on
Yeah.
machines the rest of his life, he's not living. So anyway,
Yeah.
but that's something that Mormons even today get very upset about because they're like, no, they're here to try you and for them to get a body. If you abort them, then that's wrong. And I'm like, this is a choice the parents have to make because I mean, if my son had lived, I don't think I would have had any more children because the amount of care he would have taken would have been more than I could do with the health problems I have
Mhm.
and that I've had since he was born. It started with him. And so that's something, yeah, that's a deep subject we'll have to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I agree
Yeah.
also, Iris Ark, we got to talk about mental health problems as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just ableism in general as a topic, and then specifically in the Mormon church. My friend has cerebral palsy and is a Mormon and gets mistaken for someone with Down syndrome all the time. He's every bit as aware and
Wow.
intelligent as we are,
Yes.
but that happens to him all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, people think physical disability means mental
They
disability.
do.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God.
yeah.
It's like somebody's blind, so they yell at him. It's like, my hearing's fine.
Yeah.
Why
I
are
can
you
hear.
yelling? You could whisper and I'd still hear you. I had a deaf friend who would also make comments like that about, people, the way they would be just so, well, kind of thing to him. And they're just like, stop shouting at me. Yeah. So that was fun.
Uh,
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are
Well,
good.
and yeah, the way the church is dealing with mental illness too,
Yeah.
mental health problems, that they are evolving. They are getting so much better the past 10 years than they were before. So like we've also been champions of pointing out when somebody says in general conference, like Patrick Kieran, they say something that is like actually aware of mental illness and mental disabilities, and you're like, oh, hey, they actually said something that was good for
Right.
once. They're like evolving a little bit on this. So yeah, that's an interesting topic as well.
Yeah.
Especially like I mean, because I know in a prior generations, like it was much more similar to like Jehovah's Witnesses, where like mental health professionals are maligned. Oh, their head shrinks. That's the whole culture of even going to somebody for mental health issues was much more maligned in past years.
Definitely. And I mean, it's a lot like also just the difference between them encouraging women to have as many children as they can and then no longer doing that. Why?
Yeah.
And so, they have learned. So,
Yeah, exactly.
There's a book, it's really more of a pamphlet that came out in the 19th century called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
yep.
And it has caused a lot of problems and attitudes in amongst Mormons toward mental health. James Allen is quoted by general authorities all the time. He's quoted in Miracle of Forgiveness, and his whole philosophy is if anything is wrong with you at all, especially your mental health, it's a problem with your thinking. You can think your way out of anything at all, even cancer or whatever.
I've been told that. And I'm like, yeah, no. Okay.
The whole problem with that pamphlet is that James Allen is a very good writer,
Yes.
brilliantly crafted sentences. It's a pleasure to read, but it's also caused a ton of damage all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. As men thinketh, so is he. Yeah.
Yep. Iris Arc appends a comment to that. Feeling depressed? Just pray more. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it.
And when you say it eloquently, the way that James Allen did, it becomes a lot more convincing.
You can
Yep.
think it. This is how we teach you music, according to
The
Harold.
think system.
Yep, the think system. La-di-da-di-da. Okay, all right.
Music Man.
I love
Okay.
that
I was
musical
like, what is
still.
happening? Okay.
It's a musical.
All right. Julie, Shannon, and I just need to get on a Zoom sometime and talk musicals.
We do.
Yeah.
We need to talk about Slipper and the Rose. We've got to talk about that sometime. And I want to have Bryce watch it. It's the only version of Cinderella I love. And that's because of stuff that people
Because
don't
spoiler.
realize. You know the fucking story.
I mean, I
Oh
know the
my
Cinderella
God.
story, but I don't know
The
the
only
take on it that you
way
like
for
it.
him to marry Cinderella is actually what happens.
Oh, okay.
So there.
All right, that was spoiler free. That was, or I mean, it was teasing that there was going to be a spoiler, and then a spoiler didn't happen. So
That's
kudos.
right.
All right.
So the hard part will be finding where it is. I have a disc of it, but yeah, it's yeah. Richard Chamberlain starred in it. He was fun. He did a lot of musicals. That's how he started, is in musical theater, kind of like Hugh Jackman. And so that's why you saw him in a lot of these. And he did his own singing and everything. It has my absolute favorite song from any musical there is. That's the Protocol song. And I love that song. I know I have the entire thing memorized.
I will return and report. I'm not familiar, but it sounds very much up my alley.
It's great. It was done like early 80s, late 70s, something like that. I'm trying to remember.
I saw it years and years ago.
It was a long time ago. I was still in high school, I think. So it'd be early 80s. But yeah, it was, oh God, I loved it. The Slipper and the Rose, it's called.
Mhm.
And I always liked Richard Chamberlain. In fact, you know how, God, tangent, I don't care. All right. So in the 80s or 90s or something like that, they did a TV miniseries of The Bourne Identity from the book itself. Because the Matt Damon one is basically taking the concept and updating it to now, because the book is about them creating a pseudo assassin program to get Carlos the Jackal, who was an actual assassin of the time. The only reason why he actually did serve time is he turned himself in and confessed to everything. So he starred in that with Jacqueline Smith, who played Marie, and it was good. And I have the disc of that. So when the new ones came out with Matt Damon in the third one, have you guys all watched those? Okay, so in the third one, the Bourne Ultimatum, when he gets the file that he gives out of the safe that he gives to what's her name, the woman CIA agent that he's trying to get everything done, he looks in it. The first picture you see of somebody who was assassinated is Richard Chamberlain at that time when they were filming these. And it just made my whole day because I'm like, oh, that's Richard Chamberlain. He played Bourne first. So anyway, that's your little
So they did that
trivia.
to kind of like make it like as an established universe that like the newborn series is like this is just taking
I think it was a
place
nice
later,
tribute.
basically, right?
No, well, no, it's just basically its own thing again.
Huh,
But
okay.
it was more of a tribute to him because they do that a lot with movies like the when they did the first Charlie's Angels with Drew Barrymore and all them, having Jacqueline Smith come on
Okay.
but she was being herself from then being Kelly. But they'll do that. Well, it's just this little nod to those who have seen him before or seen the previous one that they're remaking or whatever. So
Right.
those kind of things are fun. Yeah. They did it with Ghostbusters too. Yes, like when Colm Wilkinson got to play the bishop in the Les Mis movie. Yes, for sure. Oh my God. Did you hear about what he would say to Hugh Jackman after Hugh would have to do some of his songs, which really stretched him? He's like,
I
yeah,
can't wait to hear.
that's so you get to do that. I don't have to. I don't want to hear it. You're complaining.
He
I
was
loved
about
the Les
John.
Mis movie. They did a fantastic job.
Except for Javert.
Not the
I
Hugh
actually
Jackman
liked him.
one. They need
What
to
was that?
get people who can sing if they're going to do.
Well, I actually liked that the ones they had on there. And I even liked Russell Crowe as Javert because he was very controlled in how he did it. It was very quiet, very, very much like he was locked up because the character himself was like that. He was so focused, so obsessed, so everything, and that's all he could do and all he could think about. And
It was
that's why I liked him as Javert.
it was quite well acted. He sounded like the goons from World of Warcraft to me when he's saying "Duh, out in the darkness."
Yeah. And but 76 is when Slipper and the Rose came out. So anyway, but yeah, I loved Anne Hathaway's when she sang her song. I cry every time I watch it, every single time.
Me too.
Yeah, that was
Beautiful.
fantastic. And so yeah, um okay, definitely Slipper and the Rose. Oh God, we should pull or if we're able to stream it online somewhere. We got to pull Tanner in on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told Shannon if we can rope you into it, I'll join.
Yeah, exactly. We have to, because
Yeah.
there's so
Make Bryce
many
watch it.
nuances to it that the layers to the story are fantastic. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah,
I
we have
did get to play Prince Topher in the Rodgers and Hammerstein
Did
Cinderella.
you?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, we have
Oh my
to
God.
rope Bryce into Les
Bryce
Mis as
saw me
well.
do that actually. Sorry, Julie. I didn't mean to talk over you. Bryce saw me be Prince Topher. I forgot about that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
want to see you be
Excellent.
Topher. That would be great.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's some good people that played in this.
I don't think I saw you be Topher.
Oh yeah, you came to A Few Good Men. That's right.
Yeah, that's the one that I came to. Yeah,
Huh.
which you played that part excellently as well. So I
Thank
can
you,
only
sir.
imagine how good the
As
Topher
in that
was.
Tom Cruise movie, A Few Good Men?
Yeah, I was Christopher Guest's character in it.
Oh,
the doctor.
yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
It was funny. I
Huh.
took a picture of Tanner in costume and sent it to our D&D group, and everyone was like,
Oh
"Who?
yeah,
What is that?" And I'm like,
His
"That's
cousin didn't even recognize him.
yeah."
they put me in this terrible wig. It looked like they had just scalped a raccoon and put it on my head. It was awful. It was so bad.
That's funny.
It's
Oh, that's
hilarious.
hilarious.
But look, I can only think of one musical that I ever watched that I didn't like, and that was White Christmas. So like
Oh my God.
every other musical
Ugh.
I've enjoyed. So hey, I'm down. I'm absolutely
Yes.
down.
I mean, White Christmas, it drags on forever.
I just like I think I hated it because my mom loved it so much and made it like tradition of
For
watching
sure.
it every Christmas and was like made
Yeah.
it a family tradition, and I hated it every single year. And so like as a kid, I just built up like a universal hatred of this movie. So I've never
That-
watched it as an adult. I don't even know what it's about. I don't remember it. I just remember hating every Christmas when it would come around that we had to do this.
That was
It's
an
about counting your
interesting,
blessings.
yeah, that was an interesting musical because it was written around that song, White Christmas, that Bing Crosby sang. And so, it was created for that. But originally, it was going to be him and Fred Astaire starring in it. But then I think Astaire broke his leg or something, or broke his foot or ankle or toe or some shit like that. So had to back out of it, and they brought in Danny Kaye.
Oh,
And they had things like there was one song specifically written of them of like the crooner and the dancer um kind of thing, and they had to completely rewrite it and make it the crooner and the comic. And so the dance scene with Danny Kaye and Peggy,
yeah.
what's her name, that was choreographed for Fred Astaire. That was not a Danny Kaye
Interesting.
piece
I was just gonna
dance.
say it would have been so great to see Fred Astaire do
Wouldn't
that
it
dance.
though?
It's still a good
Yeah,
dance, honestly, but
right.
man, Fred Astaire would have crushed it.
He would have, because I mean, it was written for him and or choreographed for him, I should say. And so, you have that. You also have, I can't remember if that's her name, but she was brought in for dancing, and good fucking God, that woman was good.
Yeah,
Watching
no
her
kidding.
and the partner she has in there most of the time. I mean, Danny Kaye would partner her, but nowhere near her level. She was 27 floors above him on abilities. That woman, I mean, she was Gumby out there. But watching her dance was fascinating, but she couldn't sing. Rosemary Clooney said that they had to dub somebody else in, and because she could not sing at all. So, that was one of the funny things about it. But, Rosemary Clooney was not brought in for dancing. She was brought in to sing. And so, yeah, she talks about things like the most famous part of that whole movie for her in her career was the dress with the pin on her ass. And that's when she does that one song all by herself. Um, that where because she says they had the dress there, she was in it, they were getting ready for her to go out and start filming that when Edith Head, who was in charge of the costumes, said, "Wait a second," and grabbed the pin and stuck it there on the back of her ass. And they were like, "Hey," and that's what everyone remembers from her whole performance in that was that dress. And she loved the dress. It's kind of fun on the DVD, which I have the DVD of it. Um, if you could watch it with her doing the audio commentary and hearing her
Oh,
talk
cool.
about everything in it. And so, and things like the problems Bing Crosby had with Danny Kaye, because Danny Kaye was gay, and that there was just so much infighting between them after, with them afterwards because Bing Crosby was an asshole, and those kind of things. And so it was just really fun. It's really fun with those. That's how I like to watch White Christmas, because I think the story itself is kind of dumb.
Yeah,
It
not
is.
much plot there.
There's not. So it's just a feel good, let's see him save the old general kind of movie, and that's about it.
Sisters is funny.
While while we're on musicals, I'm just gonna give another pitch. You probably won't have to hear it from me again, but the Hatchetfield trilogy would be really fun. I would like to hear both of your thoughts.
Hatchetfield?
Yeah, so this was a while ago. I sent it to both you and Bryce. It's
Okay.
3 musicals: The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, um, Black Friday, and Nerdy Prudes Must Die.
Huh.
Um, it's the same acting company that did a Harry Potter musical, Star Kid.
Ah, okay.
It's just very, very, very good.
Okay. Okay. When did you send that information
I
to
don't
us?
remember. It was on Instagram that I sent it to you, Shannon. It must
Okay.
have been 6 months ago or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
I'll send it to you again.
Send
That'll
it
be easy.
again. Okay, that's good. Okay.
I think I sent you the trailers for them as well. I'll
You
send it
probably
all so
did.
you've
And
got the whole.
I know, it's like I need to write things down because my heart's stupid and it does stupid things to my thinking at times. And 6 months ago was not a good time. Oh my God. There's a lot of things that are weird right now. Okay. Okay. Excellent.
Fantastic.
We're hitting our 2 hour mark, I think.
Yeah, we're just about to hit the 2 hour mark. So yeah, I mean, got a whole bunch of new entries in our whiteboard for
Yes.
the next, I mean, the next probably year of the show.
Easily.
And that's, that's fantastic. I mean, we have now 77 entries in here, and we've checked off about 15 of them, maybe. So yeah, that's a lot of main segments, a lot of media segments as well, because our media of great price sheet has 9 other entries, and we've only done one of those. So yeah, I mean, we added a bunch to this, and also like doing like a musical watch party too. Like I'm
Yes.
super into this as well. I think we need to
Yes.
actually pull the trigger and execute on this.
Yes, yes, yes.
And other people in the YouTube comments are also asking for tickets to this watch party as well. So I think that could be a lot of fun.
A musical squad cast.
Musical
Yes. That
squad
would be so
cast.
fun. Hi, Will. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because oh God. I've been wanting to have you watch Slipper in the Rose for a while just because it's my favorite, well, not my totally favorite version of Cinderella, but favorite filmed version of Cinderella. Filmed or even stage play, but there's others I really love, like Into the Woods.
Yeah,
Into the Woods is awesome.
yes,
But
it is.
also, I mean, the film was all right with Meryl Streep. There were some really good parts of it. I have a DVD of the stage
Is there
version
a
of
pro
it.
shot? Yeah.
With Bernadette.
Yep. And yeah, the first time I saw it was actually when one of my younger sisters was in it in high school. And I was like,
Nice.
damn, I like this this play. This is awesome. Because I love
Yeah,
fractured fairy tales. So yes.
yeah, the
Yeah.
theater that I usher at, gonna do it next.
Good.
So it's
Excellent. Maybe I have to come up and see it. If I travel that far. Actually,
yep,
that's hard. I have a
Centerville,
hard
so
time.
not too far.
Yeah,
It's
I
a little
have a
bit of
hard
a
time
drive.
driving at night, though.
Yeah, that's
My
true.
night vision has gotten weird on me. Have to think about it. Okay. Anyway, future watch party for sure. Vera Allen.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ira Sark. That's her name in it. Her name was Peggy in the show, I think, but I can't remember her name, her real name. Vera Allen, White Christmas, the dancer, the fantastic, phenomenal dancer. Yeah.
She the one with a really, really teeny, like
Tiny
microscopic
waist.
waist. Yeah, I
Yeah, that
remember
looks like
her.
it's like 12 inches. Yeah.
Creepy.
But the calves on her when she does that little
I
tap with
know.
her foot, it's
Oh my
amazing.
God. The choreography song, that's the best one in the whole thing. That's the best,
The
I think.
theater, the theater.
It's choreography. Yeah. And that was written for Danny Kaye to do. So they did a great job with that. Oh my God. She was amazing. Yeah. Good times. Okay. All right. All
Very
right.
cool.
Shannon,
All right.
shut up.
We're right at the 2 hour mark. I also have a very
Okay.
whiny kitty here, so apologies for that maybe coming through when I've been talking as well. But yeah, so thanks to our patrons for making this possible. Patreon.com/glassboxpodcast. That's where you get extended editions of the show. Well, all the outtakes, and Shannon and I, and bloopers and whatnot, and just catching up and seeing how each other is doing.
Shannon
Extra
trying to
content.
pronounce words. Yeah.
Shannon trying to pronounce words, Bryce trying to pronounce words that Shannon gives him. There's a lot of fun over there. So we really appreciate those of you who are supporters of the show on Patreon, and those of you who are not supporters or who are just listening or who tuned into the live show or listen to this after in the broadcast or whatever the case is. And to the people who come back every 2 weeks and listen to the show, thank you all so much. And thank you to our panelists for joining us. A friend from Serbia, and Joel and Tanner and Julie, and people in the YouTube comments. Thank you all so much for contributing to the discussion and hanging out with us, spending your Saturday morning or your Sunday. No, wait.
Or Saturday
late
afternoon.
Saturday evening, I guess, for our overseas viewers who tuned in. Yeah, or Sunday morning, I guess it would be for Joel in Japan. But yeah, thanks for spending some time with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, we will see everybody later.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
3A.